I'm Lorraine Sommerfeld, and this is the Lemonade Car Show. Tonight we're talking to Dennis Desrosiers, as well as answering all of your car questions. Lemonade is brought to you by OMVIC, that's Ontario's vehicle sales regulator, and we're produced by the Automobile Protection Association. The APA fights for you, the consumer, and provides information and news on all parts of the industry. Visit our website at apa.ca or reach us by phone at 416-204-1444. Joining me today is Georgini, the president of the APA, and Dennis Desrosiers. He's the president of Desrosiers Automotive Consultants. We'll also be taking your calls all evening at 800-968-7836. Dennis, welcome back to the show this year. It's nice to have you.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
George, it's about time you got here.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here.
And I presume that's the last word I'm going to get in with you two gentlemen sitting here. So I can let you
George and I can do an hour at the drop of a microphone.
I am aware of that. So I'm just going to do that thing where, George, first
Tell us
word
what's
to yours.
happening in the market to the public. What are we buying? We had record 5 years of record sales.
Yet another record, almost 1.9 million. We think that we're going to at least hold this year. There's some downside threat, but we think we might be able to squeeze out another good year or two. What's been hot is the luxury car segment, or luxury vehicle segment. Most of them are like trucks, not cars. Continues to grow, gangbusters, fastest growing segments. SUVs, particularly compact SUVs, are really hot. Compact SUV did something that I thought I would never see, in that for the 40 some odd years I've studied this industry, compact cars have always been the number one selling category. Compact SUV overtook it this past year.
Wow.
And so that's big.
What about small vehicles, Dennis?
Well, if you look at it in terms of their names, it looks ominous. Some compact cars were down more than 20%. Compact cars were down 5 or 6%. But when you look at it by engineering attribute, which is a better way, I don't want to get into the technical details, but there's A, B, C, and D size cars, small to larger ones. And the Bs are down a little, but so are the Es, the biggest vehicles. And what's growing is all congregating into the middle. Cs and Ds are up. And so less than what a lot of people think.
Is this because gas is free again? Is that?
Yeah, well, it's not free, but it certainly is a lot less. Some of it's gas. And I've done work with consumers on it, and we talked to consumers who bought the small little B car. So this is Honda Fit size vehicle.
Hyundai Accent?
Yeah. And what they told us is that they actually really liked their car, which is too darn small. And so when the opportunity came back to renew their vehicle, they moved back up to compact cars or bigger vehicle. And they said, well, in the compact cars or the middle-sized vehicles that become so fuel efficient, then we don't need to chase ourselves down to a smaller vehicle in order to get the fuel efficiency we look for.
Well, I have a sense people are actually upsizing a little, aren't they?
Well, they are. And again, a lot of...
Right sizing?
Right sizing.
Maybe.
What about EVs?
Not selling at all. EV sales last year were about 3,000 in Canada. 1,000 of those were Tesla. So do you really count that?
I love you giving an $8,000 subsidy to a buyer of a $100,000 car. They probably would have made the
Quebec.
They probably would have made the purchase anyway. So that's one of the concerns we have, is about the incentives not really being tailored. They make good copy.
Ontario just changed that.
Yeah, I know.
They made it more geared to the type of vehicle you're buying. Hybrid sales, surprisingly, was down for the third year in a row. They peaked in Canada in the mid to high 20,000 range, and they're now down to about 17.
For a long time, our concern was there weren't that many good good vehicles, but there actually are some. Toyota has a very good range of hybrid vehicles.
Well, it's interesting. There's about 70 new vehicles introduced at the various auto shows this spring. Detroit, Toronto, go down the list. And I think about 2/3 of them, they threw in a hybrid options. It's just kind of like, it's just become no big deal. So, hey, we got the brand new Pacifica minivan. It's got all the spectacular technology. Oh, by the way, it also comes in a hybrid version. But people aren't buying them. And they're definitely not buying EVs. It is failing, not just in Canada, it's failing in every major market in the world. The Germans set a goal 4 or 5 years ago of having 1 million on the road by 2020.
And they're considered very advanced on energy issues.
And they're very advanced on energy, green issues. There's 30,000. And so a big debate inside Germany is, what do we do to get people to buy these vehicles? And so you can force people to buy them. The Chinese do that, and some other markets, and there's the odd situation.
A different kind of government system than ours.
California also comes close to that for a small percentage of
Yeah, and there are markets out there. You get into the taxi business in Vancouver, or generally Los Angeles, California, period, and things like that. When you talk to consumers about it, it's interesting because, they gravitate to the obvious flaws. Oh, I don't have the range. I can't get all of what I want in a vehicle. When you cut through it, though, internal combustion engine vehicles to this day are still, for the most part, not always, far superior to an electric vehicle. You get all your transportation needs met. You need one vehicle if you're buying an internal. You can find it. It's going to fit everything that you possibly could do. It's really hard to get that with an EV.
But to be fair, you buy a vehicle to fit your needs for 2 weeks when you're on holiday during the year, right? The other 50 weeks, a smaller car, it's mostly with one person in it.
Well, we envision the life we want to have, not the one we do have.
Well, that's true.
True, but I think it's more than 2 weeks.
I need those roof racks.
And we all have
The
different
skiing
needs.
I do,
A golfer has a different needs than someone who plays tennis. I call there's a mother-in-law problem. Many of us have a mother-in-law that happens to, if we're smart, we live just far enough away that an EV won't reach them.
That's one of your favorite quotes of mine. I use it all the time. I do.
But you have you have an obligation, Christmas, birthdays, anniversaries, and all these kind of things, and so that trunk space, cold weather, hot weather, pickup trucks, carrying, towing. There's always a good excuse.
So what's happening with government policy?
Well, it's failing miserably. They're not promoting EVs. Your Quebec government is one of the worst. They are living in la-la land. They're putting millions and millions and millions of dollars into this. Thank you, Hydro-Quebec. And people aren't buying them. Sales in Quebec were up 500 units after spending tens of millions of dollars promoting them. Quebec government would have been smart to take the tens of millions of dollars they're putting into all of this stuff and just go out and buy a bunch of them and hold a lottery. And you would have increased sales by 4 or 5 times the amount by trying to incentivize them. And so
that's an interesting concept.
And so seriously, if you did the math. So and then they lie to their electric. So, oh boy, you got to buy these vehicles because they're going to lower smog. Electric vehicles have nothing to do with smog. That kind of stuff.
We're going to come back to this in a second. The weak dollar, what impact are we going to see?
Great question. It's scary. At some point, a weak dollar has to be reflected in price. And price is obviously, Adam Smith's invisible hand is very powerful. You increase price, people buy less.
So should we buy it now? If someone's in the market?
It's a good time to buy
it. It would be good to buy right now.
Especially used, by the way. I think we're going to have a real shortage this spring, especially if we have good weather, of the larger used cars on the market because they're being snapped up by American buyers.
Being snapped up by American buyers. And the offsetting that, though, is that we bought so many vehicles 3, 4, 5 years ago. They're coming back to the used vehicle marketplace. Prices are starting. There's been at least a half a dozen, maybe even a dozen increases of MSRP. $300 here, $500 there. Okay. And the other thing you're starting to see is that they're starting to put some of these price increases into the option packages. So there's very little, you can maintain the MSRP and then enter, that base model. But to get it optioned the way you want.
With a horn or something?
Well, it's more than, you want a steering wheel? Well, that's a $1,000 option.
I'll run ads all across the country, $44 a week for a Honda Fit, but then I won't produce any cars. That's the way you do it.
And but that doesn't help you around the exchange rate per se. At some point, it does a little bit, but that's more of an advertising.
But if someone's thinking of buying, move it sooner rather than later. The dollar is going to start.
If I was a consumer, I would want to be in the market earlier in the year than later. But then, what's going to happen to the dollar? Who would have ever thought that we would drop from 90 to 70, and who would have thought that we got back into the high 70s in the last few weeks? And it's really a gamble on energy prices, and who knows? It would appear that the dollar is going to be in trouble for a while.
And Saudi can hang on for how long?
So it's a real moving target. And why take the risk? If you need a vehicle, and that's number one. If you don't need a vehicle, why would you buy one? But if you need a vehicle and you have the ability financially to enter the marketplace, then I would do it sooner rather than later.
Okay.
And that's one of the reasons why we think the market's going to hold up this year. There's also over 10 million vehicles on the road in Canada that are over 10 years old. And these are coming off, they're all going to disappear, or most of them are going to disappear in the next 4 or 5 years. So that sets a base level of demand up in the 1.4, 1.5 range, just to replace the stuff that's going to be scrapped.
None of this sounds very green.
So,
That's not
well, it's
very
very
long.
green to take an old vehicle off the road and put a new one.
Except that
average
old one
new
runs into a
vehicle-
wrecking yard. It's not green at all. It's like skeleton. They're just acres of old cars, and if we're going to see a glut of them coming off,
And
then
maybe we
it's
can
gonna go.
improve how we scrap vehicles and what we do with these old clunkers.
Okay.
But
you know what? We're going to come back in one sec.
Let's come back to that, though. I
The
wanna talk
Lemonade,
to
car, the Lemonade Car Show, brought to you by OMVIC, Ontario's motor vehicle sales regulator, returns after this short break. When we come back, we'll be taking your calls, 800-968-7836.